Previously on Death Arena, we had a battle between two Cryokinetics. Well, today, we're doing another one. This time we have two of the greatest ice users known to anime. Gray Fullbuster from Fairy Tail, and Kyuzen aka Aokiji from One Piece. With that being said, let's find out who will survive in the arena of death. In the country of Fiori, far up north, a boy was born to two loving parents. He lived happily, playing like any child should, until the day his life changed forever. His city was attacked by a power-raging demon named Delira, resulting in the death of the boy's parents and village. Gray survived, trapped under the rubble of a random building until a powerful ice wizard named ER showed up. Taking on a mentor-slash-mother role to Gray, she trained him and her other student, Lyon, in the way of ice make magic. She taught him things like how to survive in cold conditions, by casually wearing bikinis in the snow. Gray accepted the training however, as he wanted to avenge the death of his parents. Soon, Gray went to combat Delira, and failed miserably. Nevertheless, ER showed up and fought with the beast, each one taking blow for blow until ER was running on fumes, and Delira was still going. Using a last resort technique, she surrounded Delira and herself. See, Gray actually used the spell to surround Delira, and encase him forever. The ice however, was just her. After he and Lyon had a pretty bad falling out, Gray followed Ur's parting advice, and went west to find a group of powerful wizards. This guild was the beautifully obnoxious hall called Fairy Tail. Utilizing his powerful ice techniques, Gray casually rose to one of Fairy Tail's strongest. With intense training and constant practice, he mastered a two-hand technique of ice make, and could create almost anything at will. Swords, cannons, stairs, and even pieces of armor and shields. His more useful tools for battle include Ice Make Prison, which allows him to trap opponents and objects. Ice Make Floor allows him to slip up his opponents, and Ice Make, one-side Chaotic Dance creates a violent flurry of blades that can near murder stomp those who get in its way. So in a basic breakdown, Gray can use Ice Make magic to trap, attack, and defend. But his already powerful ice magic attacks don't stop there. The most basic form of ice magic he learned was, well, ice magic. It's this technique where Gray can create more sword flurries, freeze opponents solid, and use the forbidden ice shell technique, the same one used by ER to encase Delira. While it hasn't been used directly, it is heavily implied that he can if he needs to. He can take his power one step further with the dangerously powerful Ice Devil Slayer magic. This lets him control and manipulate the very element of ice at will, at the cost of being difficult to control. He can boost his ice make skills with this, and finally, he can chow down on nearby ice to replenish stamina and return to fighting in the meantime. Anything within several meters is completely encased in ice once he uses instantaneous freeze, once again making the foe slip up. Using his other super move, Ice Devil's Ear off his long sword, he can create a powerful ethereal blade from his palms, and rip and tear through almost anything. Finally, the Destruction Vow creates a powerful and intricate vow made of ice that will fire at the target, then shatter, sending deadly ice shards into their body to heavily damage them. Gray is an adept hand-to-hand combatant, a powerful swordsman, along with seriously accurate marksman, and his durability is much more than the average man. One time, despite being severely injured, he took the force of 4 Lightning Palace Lacrima, which knocked out one of Fairy Tail's member Visxa for 2 days. He's extremely agile, able to wall jump with relative ease, and avoid things going at hypersonic speeds. Heck, he's strong without his ice magic. He could lift several giant wooden beams off of him, and could lift and throw Lucy, despite being trapped in quicksand. But with all of these abilities, Gray has some limits and weaknesses. While ice make magic is very versatile, he requires 2 hands to make a strong and complete mold. This usually takes time, but Gray's mastery over his magic speeds up his mold. Plus, he's not very bright, and his ice shell will result in his death. Overall, Gray is a master of ice magic with a varied arsenal, but he is known to make highly irrational decisions. One cold fighter to another, Aokiji, real name Kyuzen, is the first of the 3 admirals to debut in the One Piece story. Nominated by the proud Fleet Admiral Sengoku for position of Fleet Admiral, he would indirectly be involved in the incident at O'Hara that gave the Marines the excuse they needed to place a bounty on the head of one Nico Robin, a future member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Later on, he would be appalled by the actions of the former Vice Admiral Sakazuki, known to many as Akainu, who was promoted to Admiral for his actions in service to the world government. He would then participate in the Battle of Marineford, alongside his fellow admirals. Despite being a Marine, Kyuzen's easily the most affable of all three admirals. He's very laid back, follows the principle of lazy justice, and is surprisingly lazy for such a high-ranking Marine. He even is an honorable opponent in battle, keeping his word when he fought Luffy one-on-one. In spite of this, he is still a devout follower of the world government, following orders, but on occasion, found that his own ideals and principles were in stark contrast to the orders he was given. Seemingly amongst all of the admirals, Aokiji also possesses superhuman physical attributes. He took on the monster trio of the Straw Hats, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, without a scratch, took a hacky kick from Marco the Phoenix, and moments later, he recovered without injury. His jumping and hearing is very impressive, being able to freeze two tsunamis that dwarfed Marineford, which were created by an angry white mustache. I mean, beard, as well as hearing things below the surface of the sea, like Akainu. He can turn into, control, and create ice, just from his body or even his fingertips. Nearly anyone who gets in contact with him, will experience the chills of Old Man Winter. The monster trio had to learn this lesson the hard way when they fought him, and they got frostbitten and immobilized just like that. Just like any other Logia fruit, he can also let attacks simply pass right through him. His ice powers are tremendous, capable of freezing sea kings, who dwarfed most ships of the Grand Line, giants, and even several square miles of ocean, with just moments. Typically in a fight, he would use his fruit to freeze foes solid, and he can perform this simply by touching them. Afterwards, he would usually threaten to shatter their now fragile forms. Aokiji's fruit and his skill with it is so powerful that it changed the weather of half of Punk Hazard, transforming it into a frozen land of ice and snow in his fight against Akainu. Despite having the weaknesses of all fruit users, Aokiji can simply freeze the water to cross the ocean, easily circumventing such a glaring flaw. But Aokiji be warned, his laziness is his downfall in fights against his equals, not seeming to take most fights seriously. And I almost forgot. His ice is far tougher than normal ice. But Aokiji's unique fruit, and his tenacity when he fought Akainu, means that he is definitely no pushover, even in long drawn-out fights. If Aokiji can keep his laziness in check and emphasize on his ice abilities, he can freeze his competition, down to the bones. Overall, Aokiji may be lazy, but thanks to all his power, he's certainly no pushover. Chill out, Gray. This was actually a pretty tricky battle to debate. Both Gray and Aokiji were masters in cryokinesis, but both also had specific advantages over each other. For example, Gray was faster, while Aokiji was slightly more powerful. But it was perfectly clear that Aokiji was twice as experienced as Gray. Plus, it turns out that he also was far smarter. Granted, Gray could have won in specific circumstances, but more times than not, Aokiji is victorious. Another important note to make is that Gray likely could have made a fatal mistake during the fight. He could have trapped Aokiji with the ice shell, but even then, he would have been killed in the process, resulting in a double KO. Gray's speed and versatility meant he could hold his own. But Aokiji's awesome power, uniquely suited freezing, and domineering experience saw him through this battle. Looks like Aokiji stopped Gray cold. The winner is Kyuzen Aokiji.